So, Lord, we love you. Thank you for being here. And Jesus, help. Amen. That's my prayer. That's the prayer of my season. Jesus, help. Amen. It's very relatable. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about, do we have the slide up there, Liz? There it is. Raising kids in an internet age. Aw, I don't know who that guy is or those kids, but he looks like a good dad. No. Well, I want to tell you, for several thousands of years, parenting has looked very similar. We raise them in a very physical dimension, right? Like everyone here, obviously, it's innate in us to protect our children and protect our children from strangers. I remember when I first had Claire, and we're bringing home Claire, and we take Claire from the hospital, and we're having our first outing. I tell this to all of the young men that'll be fathers, like just wait. When you have a kid, you're going to start scanning the room automatically. Automatically, you don't even realize it. Whenever you walk into a new place with your kid, you're threat assessing everybody in the room. And anyone that leaves or comes in, you're always conscious of who they are or where they are. And any fathers, resonate with that at all. And it's just a natural, innate thing. It's like mothers too. Mothers like, sometimes more than the father, it's just something that's really innate inside of us. That's that paternal instinct, right? And when it comes to our kids, we will die for them, right? We will take a bullet for them. We're believers, but we will gladly kill to protect our child, right? with no remorse, right? If it's going to be you or my child, it's going to be you. Like that's just the way we are, and that's very. I think that's a good thing, right? We want to steward our children well. I'd question you if you didn't have that response. But something has happened within the past 40 years where all of a sudden we're so used to protecting our children on a physical plane that a new world has come. A different world has come. One that for thousands of generations our ancestors never had to deal with. And that's the dawn of a digital world. And so as humans and, as parents, we've evolved and understood every way in our culture to protect our children physically, but we have not been able to understand how to protect our kids digitally. And so tonight, this morning we're going to dive into that when it comes to raising our kids. And this will be talking about not just children, but also teenagers. I'm going to have a section on youth and teenagers. I don't have teenagers. My kids are still young, but I want to tell you I have been working with teenagers for over 10 years. I've been a youth pastor for millennials, Gen Z, and now Gen Alpha. And so I feel I am very qualified to talk about teenagers just because I've parented them and youth pastored them for so long, and maybe I'm youth pastoring your teenagers right now. I have people that I know that I youth pastored them when they were a teenager. I have people that I know they were my youth, and I married them, and now they're having kids. And so I have a lot of experience when it comes to young people. And so with that, I'm going to share some things tonight or this afternoon that you might feel, I never knew that. I didn't realize my teenager actually loves me. It's like they do. They just don't know how to show it. And hopefully we'll dive into that later on. But I want to ask you a question here. If you were in your home, or let's say this, having an open access to the internet can change the home dynamic quite a bit. And the reason why I say this is because if let's say you're in a home and you have your coffee table and you have your books and your magazines on the coffee table, and among the books, all of a sudden there's a pornographic magazine on the coffee table, right then and there. You're like, okay, why is this on my coffee table? Then right next to it is a magazine talking to you about how to create drugs how to create hallucinogenic drugs out of over-the-counter drugs. And the next magazine over to you is a magazine on how to kill yourself. Now, if anyone walked into my house and saw those magazines on my coffee table, they would look at me and be like, this guy is insane. He's a terrible father. Where are the boundaries for his home? Well, what we don't realize is when we bring the internet into our home, that's essentially what we're doing. We are giving access to everything that is online immediately in our home. If back in the day, if you wanted to go buy porn, you had to get in your car, drive there, endure the shame of buying the magazine, having the guy stare at you like you're a pervert as you check out and you go home. But nowadays, it's one click away. I mean, even literally, I was in the bathroom, and let me see if I can pull it up. The first thing I open up on my phone is this, when I let my husband have a girlfriend, but I date her too. I'm a pastor, y'all. My algorithm's about Jesus, Charlie Kirk, and Muay Thai. Like, that's like my algorithm. And out of nowhere, it sends me this algorithm on someone living a polyamorous life. Like, if that could happen to me, what is happening to your children when they go online? I'm just being straight. I'm being honest with you. That we have been so conditioned to parent from a physical aspect, but now we have to parent in a digital aspect. And I'm not saying that technology is evil. We're not going to be like those crazy, people that live in the wilderness and be like, all technology is evil. It's not. It's a tool, right? There has been many blessings that have come from technology. Now all of us, we can have access to research that normally we wouldn't have. We can learn more things. We can like DIY our home now without hiring someone, right? We can DIY. So many musicians that are good musicians are like, I learned off YouTube. Like, there's so many blessings when it comes to the internet. So I don't want to outright say the internet's evil and we have to get rid of it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying with this wealth of knowledge and information, we have to steward it well, especially when it comes to our kids. Especially when it comes to our children. I did not grow up in a home. I mean, I remember when it was like, Dad, I'm going to be on the internet. Don't be on the phone, please. Phone call comes in. You're like, I was in the middle of whatever game you were trying to play online, Yeah, RuneScape or whatever. I remember that. And the early days of the internet, right? And but my parents and a lot of parents around my generation, they had no idea what they were letting into the home with the internet. And so for me, when I was young, I was curious. I was like, and my kids are like this today. They found out that Siri exists on my phone, and so they always want to ask Siri the most ridiculous questions. They're like, Siri, show me a dragon. And they're like, Siri, show me a Hulk. Siri, show me Hulk killing a dragon with lots of blood. It's just like, they're curious, and their requests are not wrong. But the problem is, if we're giving them access, we can give them access to something they're not actually able to they're not prepared for mentally. And that was my story, When I was young, I think I was introduced to pornography at like 9 or 10, and it was out of curiosity. I have never seen a woman naked. I just want to see a woman naked. I didn't know how sex worked. How did it work? And all of a sudden, because there was no one watching me, there was no one telling me about it, there was no one to shepherd me and say what's right and what's wrong, I was basically feeding my mind with all these images. And traumatic images too. 9 years old, I had no idea what was going on and what was filling my head. And we often will say, we're against grooming, right? We're against grooming. We're like, we're looking out for the signs. We don't want anyone to touch our children. Like, especially when you have a firstborn, you're like, who are you? Why do you want to hold my child? I love the overprotectiveness. It's good. But when it comes to the internet, we're just like ollie in free with our children. And what we don't understand is, like, especially when it comes to a lot of these things that we discover online, we'll typically blame the person or blame the issue, but we would never do that if that happened to a minor in real life, right? Like, if a minor was seduced by a predator, we would never say it's the minor's fault, right? But when a child gets introduced to pornography online, we blame the child. Oh, you have an addiction to pornography. Well, how would they not have it? There was no one around them. They were groomed. Like, we're basically saying to all these young people, quit the addiction, quit the porn, quit all the evil stuff you're looking at, you're a sinner. But we don't understand is all these kids, if we were to put it in the natural, they're all victims of sexual abuse. They're all victims of sexual molestation online. They were introduced to something they were not prepared for. Chemicals fired, and all of a sudden, they have a brokenness because there was no one there to protect them. If we were to view that in the physical, we'd say, oh yeah, that they were abused. But we don't look at that when it comes to the digital. And like, no, actually, it's the same thing. Psychologically, it's the same thing that happens to young people when you're introduced to something when they're at a young age. And so, yeah, so a lot of the men and young men and young women that struggle, it's not their fault. It's not their fault for being curious. It's not their fault for wanting to know what it looks like. It's not their fault for the introduction. They're curious, and there was no one. Us as parents, we weren't prepared. And I don't know of any parent still that's not prepared. This is kind of a new thing. I don't know of any church that even talks about this. Like, parents aren't prepared, and so we don't know what to do. And so, kids are essentially they're just being messed up by the stuff that they see and the stuff they experience. And so, anyway, so that's the mindset I want to have when it comes to this is we need to have that same passion of protecting our kids in a physical way where we'll defend them with our life. We have to have the same thing when it comes to protecting them digitally. Because it might not just be pornography, but there are so many things out there that are wrong for kids. I mean, trans ideology, right? I just literally pulled up a reel on Facebook and was talking about polyamorous relationships. A child that maybe comes from a broken home sees maybe 3 people living together would be better than having a divorced family, so maybe I should go after that. See, what we need to understand is the world wants your children. That's how it goes. The world wants your children. They want your children, and they will do whatever it takes to get to your children. And they'll play like, oh, you know what, we don't want your children, we just want to educate them. But I'll tell you what, I've never seen more evil now than in my life. There's so much stuff online of kids going against their parents. Oh, if your parents won't listen to you, I will. If your parent doesn't accept you, then I will accept you. You can DM me, we can talk, we can have a conversation. And then they try to get the state involved to take away your children. And, you know, we look at media, and the child is the smartest one in the family, and the parents are the idiots. And how the story ends was, if only the parents listened to the child. Like, all of society is trying to remove your children from you. They're putting transgender drag, they're doing drag shows in front of minors. They're putting transgenders in reading time, and they don't realize a lot of the transgenders in the drag show, I'm just being honest today. Can I be honest? A lot of that, I don't care if you get offended by this. This is all factual. I can show you. But a lot of the people doing the drag story time, a lot of people doing the transgender story time in the public libraries, they either all get booked for child pornography or they're all previous offenders. Like, the world is after your children, more now than it's ever been before. And as parents, we have to stand up and not just fight the physical fight if someone comes in, but we have to fight the digital fight as well for our children. And so we need to have them be free. And so so we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to go a little bit into some statistics, and then we're going to go into some tools. So if I could do the first one. Sweet, awesome. So something happened in 2012 that was really polarizing for a lot of researchers. Was they were polling youth polls in schools, and they monitor mental health, they monitor mental illness, and right around 2012, there was a massive shot of depression and anxiety and suicide. And they were like, why this year? It's always trend kind of like this. You know, they're looking at cultural trends, how things can affect the child. And right at 2012, it shoots up. And they looked and they're like, what happened? What created this? What was the thing that made this happen? And they realized in 2012 is when phones were given to children. When they had access to the internet on their phone, because all of y'all remember when phones were buttons, right? Like, remember when like texting was a big deal? You can communicate with someone on the phone through text? You know what? I remember like texting and driving when I was young was people would like text and drive on their phone with the mechanical buttons. I'm like, they're just a full-on conversation as they're driving. It wasn't like do like it is now. They could like text and drive. It was crazy. But you know, in 2012, that's when every person got a phone like this with a screen, 3G, and then Facebook, Instagram, and social media started around that time. And what they saw was this massive trend towards suicide and depression and anxiety related to these devices. And so I'm bringing up all these statistics today, and these are legitimate because this is from the Pew Research Center and CDC. They did a massive study in 2023. You can read it on your own time. But nearly all U.S. teens report having access to smartphones, 95%. So 95% of all U.S. teenagers have access to smartphones. Okay, so that's just the world we live in. Doesn't mean it's an evil thing. Once again, we are here to protect our kids, not necessarily take them away from technology. About half of teenagers report 4+ hours of daily screen time. This is entertainment, not school or homework. So this is pure entertainment. High screen time, 4+ hours a day, is linked with higher rates of anxiety and depressive symptoms. So your teenager is spending about 4 hours a day, 4 hours of their life on their phone, and anything over 4 hours spikes and increased depression and anxiety, and anything less than 4 hours, they've pulled like 3 hours, it massively decreases it. I've actually seen some studies where it says kids actually spend close to 8 hours a day on their cell phone, not 4. And so if you have children, and they are children still, even though they're teenagers or under the age of 18, they're not consenting adults. If you have kids that are spending 4 hours a day on their cell phone, over 4 hours, they are almost likely guaranteed to suffer from some form of depression or anxiety. Large reviews and recent longitudinal studies find modest but consistent association between heavier social media use and increased depressive symptoms. So the more they're on social media, the more symptoms of depression they have. Causality is complex, but the pattern shows risk for some youth, especially early adolescents and teen girls. So the ones most affected by depressive symptoms are teen girls. So if you have teenage girls, you really have to protect them online. And I'm going to bring up another statistic. What's really popular nowadays is something called OnlyFans. If you don't know what OnlyFans is essentially a service that a teenage girl, or not teenage, when a girl who turns 18 can use, where basically they can create their own portal for their self. And originally the idea of OnlyFans was for like sports and for people to be like, have like top fans. So if you have a favorite baseball player, you would join the OnlyFans of the baseball player, and then you get all the exclusive like photos, videos, like all that kind of stuff through that. But what people have used is they've used it for pornography. And so now girls are, once they turn 18, they're using an OnlyFans, and 18-year-old girls still in high school are having OnlyFans, and they're selling themselves online. And there's a statistic that shows 10% of girls from 18 to 24 in America have an OnlyFans account. So if that's like 10% of girls. So if you line up 10 girls right now, and they're 18 to 24, one of them is selling themselves online. And so this is a major issue. It's a huge issue that it's happening in our nation, and it's also destroying women, because what does the scripture say? That the enemy and the woman would have tension, right? So what does the enemy want to do? He always wants to destroy women. He wants to destroy the women to procreate, right? He wants to shame women. And so that's what's happening to our young girls. So if you have a young girl, this is a good conversation for you to have. All right. Next one. Next slide. At the same time, many teens and social media helps them feel connected and creative. See, these are the positive effects that we can see of online. Effects are mixed, often depend on how platforms are used and who the teen is. So obviously the internet has created a lot of community for those who are lonely. Online gaming and stuff like that has created a lot of connection for youth that feel like they don't have many friends. Sleep and circadian disruption. Screen use delays bedtime, reduces sleep duration, efficiency, and can cause daytime sleepiness. Light from screens and late-night engagement are mechanisms. Poor sleep, in turn, is a major risk factor for worse mood and concentration. I mean, guys, like, I'm like a bad dude when I don't get a lot of sleep, and our kids can be like that in the same way. So let's go to the next slide. Cool. So porn and internet. In the U.S., many teens have a report of having been exposed to pornography by the age of 18. For example, one study found 68.4% report exposure in adolescents. I want you to think that for a second. As they polled people, they said this is the rate by the age of 18 they've been exposed. They said 64% of adolescents that polled have been exposed to pornography under the age of 18. See, this is why I'm saying they're after your children. I don't know if it's on here. It might be on here. Oh, yeah. Okay, there it is. Cool. That's the third one. Another U.S. survey, ages 10 to 17, found 42% have viewed online pornography. Intentional and versus unintentional exposure. This is a big one. A large share of exposure is unintentional via accidental clicks or pop-ups, especially at younger ages. See, this is the thing that I want to highlight. This is why the world is after your children, because your children are not searching for this, but they're exposed. So the world wants to expose your children to this. Your child isn't going there looking for it, desiring it, wanting it. They want to get your child hooked at a young age. So, I mean, you've ever seen those pop-ups for like sexy singles in your area? You're like, I'm literally writing a Bible verse right now. What are you trying to do? Like, they're so trying to get people hooked that even kids online, their exposure to it is not voluntary. They're involuntarily exposed to it. And so let's go to the next one. Okay, many studies have reports that children and youth first see pornographic material around 11 to 14 years old. Okay, so this is not a consenting age. All right, this is not an age of consent. So if anyone came in here and flashed themselves in front of an 11-year-old, you could put them in jail for indecent exposure, right? But if a company comes and flashes themselves in front of your child, nothing happens. Do you see how perverted this is? And this is why it has to be talked about, because our children are being targeted by predator companies, predator advertisements, and the world is not for our children. So anyways, some studies suggest exposure as young as 8 years old in certain contexts. Okay, can we go to the next slide? All right, pornography often presents sex without love, commitment, or consequences. Youth may begin to adopt these distorted scripts. Sex equals performance, not intimacy. Consent is unclear or irrelevant. Aggression, domination, and degrading acts are normal. So, these internalized beliefs can affect later relationships, leading to dissatisfaction, unhealthy dynamics. So, because youth are being exposed to pornography at a young age, they don't actually get to see what healthy sexuality looks like. So their default is unhealthy sexuality. Their default is hurting someone. Their default is being aggressive with someone. And to them, they just think this is normal because this is the only thing they've been exposed to. And so what we've done is we've not talked about sex in church, and so we've kept it really hidden, and the only way you can learn about sex is through worldliness online, and then we still don't talk about it. And so kids, they don't have any idea what healthy sex looks like, and then we're just recreating brokenness. Actually, one of the first things that us as parents need to do is introduce to our kids what healthy sexuality is. So when they see it and they see this, they go, "Oh, this is not what it's supposed to be. I know what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to look like this." It's like why the drug program like DARE was so big. They were telling kids at a young age drugs were bad. So when someone came up to them and said, "Do you want to have drugs?" they'd say, "No, drugs are bad." It was the first thought they had about it. They were naturally resistant because they were taught it was wrong. But when we don't stand up for our children when it comes to sexuality and they're being brainwashed and taught this becomes their only reference for what sexuality actually is. And once again, these are non-consenting children. Like these children are not consenting to learn this. Like they are not 18, they're not adults, they're not going to learn this from a recreational level. These are children that are exposed to a very young age, being brainwashed into something that isn't real or isn't true, meant to set them up and fail them. Like I want you to see the evil behind what's happening here. So anyways, so this can, next one. Increased risk of anxiety and depression has been found in some adolescent samples, especially with frequent or secretive use. Feelings of guilt, secrecy, or shame can fuel cycles of distress. Some studies have linked between pornography use and social isolation and loneliness, especially when used as a coping mechanism. And so what's the next slide? Oh, okay, cool. Before we get to that, let's just hop to that right now. Okay, cool. So practical takeaways and evidence-based steps for parents and educators. So the same people that did the study also released ways that they have found through research on how to help your family and how to help your children. And so we'll go ahead and go to that right now. And we're gonna dive into it a little bit, and then we'll talk about how to connect with your young person at home. So focus on quality is greater than quantity. How teens use their devices matter. Learning, passive scrolling, doom scrolling, late night use. And so when it comes to these, it's very common. We have this with parenting, we call it the iPad generation, where it's just like we're so overwhelmed with our kids, just hand them the iPad, right? Who's ever I'm guilty of that too. I'm like, it's tablet time. The kids are like, yeah, tablet time because I've been just too overwhelmed. Well, that is good. That's understandable. Yes, we don't want to be overwhelmed. But the problem is we don't know what our kids are viewing. We don't know what messages are coming through. There's a very popular app called Roblox. You ever heard of Roblox? Y'all, predators are on Roblox trying to get your kids. Who's ever heard of YouTube Kids? A couple years ago, a YouTube channel got shut down on YouTube Kids for teaching kids how to kill themselves. Keep in mind, this is a child app meant for your children to freely watch any content they want that's protected, and someone found a way to teach kids how to kill themselves through that app. See, I'm telling you, the world is after your children. And so when it comes to screen time or technology use, you want to focus on quality, not quantity. So when it comes to a device use, maybe be like, hey, you can use this from this certain time of the day to this certain time of the day. Hey, you did your chores, so you get rewarded with this certain time. Okay, if you're going to do your homework, you have to do it out here so I can see it. Maybe if your teenager's older, you can trust them, but if they're young and you don't want them to find anything, then just have them in your room. Figure out ways to where you're not restricting them from having technology, but you're protecting them of what they might find. That's the whole goal, is we want them to use it in a healthy way, not in an unhealthy way. And so think of ways that are great. Also, doom scrolling's terrible. Who's ever had it where on their phone and they're laughing at reels and all of a sudden it's like 2 in the morning. You're like, I was literally looking at videos for 2 hours. They actually program that. There's a very popular show called Cocomelon. Is there ever Cocomelon for kids? Do you know that when they make Cocomelon, they actually have a group of kids that watch Cocomelon, and they have devices trained to their eyesight. And the second the kid looks away, they readjust the video right before the kid looks away, so they change an image so the kid doesn't lose focus. That's why when your kid watches Cocomelon, they never break focus, because they psychologically have designed it for your child to never lose focus of Cocomelon. So they can get money for ad revenue, they can get money for viewership, and your child is their psychological science experiment. And so that's what I'm saying. The world is after your children. They want your children. And so when it comes to this type of technology, we want to protect our kids just how we protect them physically. So develop a plan. There's some good plans online on how to bring technology in a healthy way into your home. Once again, rewarding your kids specific times of the day. Like for us, it's like our kid, like, you know, if they want to play games, they can play games with the Wi-Fi off, right? For our home, it's like anytime we do karate, it's always tablet time during karate, so they can stay in the car as one's doing lessons and they can entertain themselves. Or, you know, if it's we can have it in the morning. They can start out in the morning playing just for 30 minutes, or if they do their chores, then they can have more screen time. So you want to be able to monitor that. Even if your child's 16 or 17 years old, a lot of times we're like, oh, we have teenagers, I got to have my hands off, I got to have them find themselves. No, I'll tell you what, that's the worst time to be hands off with a child, because that's when they're the most influenced by culture and by things around them, especially if your child's in public school. Let's go to protective sleep. Set rules about device-free wind down, no screen times, 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Keep phones out of bedrooms or at night. Sleep problems mediate many harms. So oftentimes we go to sleep with our phones, right? Kids go to sleep with their phones, and they're talking to their friends. They're doom scrolling. Guys, they don't need to do that. Your kid does not have to have their phone with them at night. They don't have to. Like, I know this might be revolutionary. They don't need their phone in their room at night. I'll tell you what, nothing good happens online past 11 p.m. for anyone. So when you get into weird stuff is when you're tired, you're anxious, you're exhausted, and now you're like, you found a way you can cope, and so I'm just going to go online. So when you have kids, teenagers, young people that have phones, even if they're 9 years old and they have a phone, make a curfew for their phone. 9 p.m., we're taking your phone away. What? Why? So you don't doom scroll till 2 a.m., bud. Like, I care about your sleep. I want you to be awake for school. Once again, we're parents. We're parenting and raising our kids. And so I even know people that they would take their phone, they would hide their phones, and the kids would break into their bedroom and steal their phone while the parents were asleep. So they ended up getting a safe, and they locked the safe, and they had the safe change passwords every week so the kids wouldn't know what password, because the kids were so addicted to their phones. They couldn't survive without their phones. And so, okay, now some kids are probably going to be angels and super responsible and never do anything wrong, and that's great. But you're going to have kids of the opposite. The phones are going to be a major issue for them. Okay, so set good rules. You know, also a good rule is no phones at dinner time. When you're sitting down for dinner, everyone puts their phone away. Or parents put their phones away too. Kids put their phones away. Like, we need to find ways to connect beyond digital ways with our kids. You can still send them memes and send them texts and, you know, send them funny stuff. That's fine, but we got to do it in a controlled way. Okay, discuss content and skills. Teach media literacy, coping with social comparison, and how to curate feeds, privacy settings. So this is a really good one. All of you should talk to your kids about what they view online. If you have young girls, hey, like, do you ever feel really insecure when you see people online when you're on social media? Like, those are conversations we got to have with our kids. Yeah, I feel terribly insecure. Or like, son, like, do you ever feel like you're not enough when you see other people post things that, you know, they may be better at than you are? You know, these are conversations we have to have, because these kids are being taught worldly things, worldly principles through their phones. And just because they're quiet doesn't mean they're being good kids. You know, they could be getting into some weird stuff, struggling mentally with what they've heard. And just hearing a one Sunday message or a one Wednesday youth group message is not going to bring them transformational change if their house is against them. I'm not saying your house is against them. I'm just saying, as parents, we have to participate actively still with our kids even when they're young. So ask them questions like, hey, what are you viewing online? Like, there's no shame. Like, do you feel like what you're viewing is causing a negative effect in your life? Like, do you feel bad or feel more depressed? Like, have conversations at the dinner table. Like, hey, how long you been on social media? Like, Do you feel like any more risk of sadness since you've been on social media since then? You'll be shocked what your kids say. I mean, we have some kids in youth group that are like, I did it. I'm like, what'd you do? They're like, we deleted all of our social media accounts. I'm like, seriously? He's like, yeah. He's like, we're locking in, and we're just going to be on YouTube and watch documentaries. We're done. We're unplugging from the Matrix. These are like two of our boys. And we're done. And so it's been like almost a year. I'm like, how's it feel? Like, it's been the most amazing year. We don't care what people think about us. We don't care what other people are doing. We feel like we're more present in our mind. And even the guys, this is another thing, you might not know this, but the guys that made Facebook and the guys that made social media, they publicly regret it. They say, we had no idea what we're doing. We had no idea we'd create dopamine-addicted people. And they don't even have social media. And they said, we wish we'd never made it. Because they don't, science without morality is mad science. And so they just regretted it. All right, limit recreational screen time when it interferes with school, physical activity, family life. If time to do your homework, no, I want to play a game. Nope, you're going to do your homework instead, Hey, I need you to do the dishes. 1 second. No, not 1 second. Do it now. Like, we want to create healthy conversations with our kids when it comes to these. That, hey, you may have access to this, but I pay for the phone plan, so give me the dang phone back. You know what I mean? This is my phone. Did you pay for it? Are you the one paying the contract? Like, just because they have this doesn't mean they're entitled to everything on it. Once again, these are non-consenting young people. They don't know what they're being introduced to. So develop a healthy plan for recreational screen time. And if we want to do Q&A for this, maybe some of you guys have some questions, we can. All right, watch for red flags, persistent mood change, withdrawals, sleep loss, academic decline, secrecy about phone use or cyberbullying, seek professional support when needed. I remember there was this one game that my sister and I had growing up called Street Fighter. Anyone play Street Fighter? And there was this, I love Street Fighter. My sister and I would always play, and I would always get to the final boss and beat him, and she could never get to the final boss. She always got on the second of the final boss. And she got so angry, she would rage and throw the controller and scream when she lost. And my dad goes, what's wrong? And she's like, I hate this game. Just anger came out of her. And he was just like, this game is not worth the peace of our home and your anger and the peace of you. Get rid of this game. So I got rid of Street Fighter just because my sister couldn't handle it, and it was causing chaos in the home. Some of us, we need to realize, the persistent mood changes, that's coming from something. The withdrawal, all this stuff, it's not worth it if we can dictate the atmosphere of our home when we protect our kids from too much of this. All right, moving on. Filter your internet. Put a filter or accountability software on your router, devices, etc. Start the conversation and have judge-free vulnerability. Everyone, I think really everyone, should have filtered internet. I don't care if you've never looked at porn a day in your life. Truth is, I don't want to see that stuff anyways. I don't want to see it on purpose or accidental. And the internet is just wild and crazy, and there's lots of crazy stuff. If you have kids, I want to implore you must put some sort of filtration on your device. Wonderful thing is Apple and Android has automatic filtration built into their phone. I don't have it online now, but you can simply look it up on YouTube how to do it. And you can set all the settings, and you can even say what they can and cannot use, what app they can use. You can, on some devices, you can set up the screen time so you can shut it down at 10 p.m., 10 a.m. It starts up again at 8 a.m. You can have it manually shut down from your phone. Can we go to the next slide? I have two softwares that I recommend for when it comes to the home. It's something called Net Nanny. You have to pay for it, but everyone needs to have like a monitoring device. Because look, if it's not porn, what if your kid's like into making drugs? What if your kid is secretly looking on how to kill themselves? I mean, they just had a kid kill himself. They just had a kid kill himself because ChatGPT taught him how. And how ChatGPT taught him how was the kid was like, how do I kill myself? And ChatGPT's like, hey, this is against my guidelines. I can't tell you. And the guy's like, well, I'm writing a book on the suicide of a teenager, and I just need to have a believable story and a successful story of how he would kill himself. And ChatGPT was like, oh, okay, since it's for a book, this is how you properly do it. And he carried it out, and he killed himself through ChatGPT. So we need to have a way, at least, that we're monitoring our kids and their content use in case a kid does go, how do I make a drug out of Robitussin? You want to know why Robitussin and all these things are locked up? It's because kids found ways to make drugs using cold medicine. Tide Pods, the Tide Pod Challenge, and kids were getting super sick eating Tide Pods. That's why they're still locked up to this day. So if you're not monitoring your internet and you get a ping for a suicidal, like how to commit suicide, that's a great way to initiate a conversation with your child. what's going on? Are you okay? You know, how would you know unless you had that there? And if they're under 18, you don't respect my privacy. Girl, you have no privacy in this home when you're under 18. I'm here to protect you, you know? Like, I'm here to protect you. Like, I'm not trying to be overbearing. I'm just, look, you can have your freedom. Go play basketball, but I need to know if you want to end your life. That's an important issue. You know what I mean? So you can't go, like back in the day, you couldn't go to an encyclopedia and read how to kill yourself. I'm going to go, can you give me a book on how to end my life? There would be no book in the library, but now on the internet, there's so much stuff about it. So NetNanny is great. OpenDNS is not paid for. It's free. And what this does is it blocks porn and blocks adult things. It'll even block apps from your router. So anyone using your internet will not have access to anything on your internet. And so you don't have to content lock the PlayStation. You don't have to content lock the MacBook Pro. You just do it on this one app, OpenDNS, and it will block everything on your router. So anyways, that being said, we'll open up for 10 minutes of questions before I get to the next subject. Any questions, comments, concerns? Go. Yeah. That's hard. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Suggestions. And this is good because we're going to talk about like how to connect with your young person in the next slide. So the one thing that people will say is you can never, and we mentioned it earlier today, you can never protect your kid from everything. They're always going to be exposed. Someone's always going to be exposed to something. They're going to meet a bad person. They're going to see something online. And so everyone that NetNanny and all these people that they specialize in like filtration for online, they say filtration only works so far. The other part of the battle is having a vulnerable and honest conversation with your teenagers, with your young people in the home. Is you have to have accountability and vulnerability and filtration at the same time. And so if you don't have access to those devices, then I would dive into, okay, how can I vulnerably connect more with my daughter to help her in this time, since I'm not able to protect her in that way? Because that is a hard situation because, you know, one side, this is the way we are. The other side, this is the way we are. So I would just go right in the middle, go right in the heart of it, and just, you know, have conversations like, hey, how are you doing? You know, I was just thinking the other day, a lot of kids struggle with self-image because of online stuff. This wasn't normal for me. I didn't have this, but have you ever struggled with self-image when you see stuff online? Oh, yeah, funny enough. Yeah, I do, you know. Start conversations like that, and at least from there, because that's the real goal. The real goal of all this is to connect with your child over these things. It's not just to block them and not talk. That's still creating a bad issue. Like, we need to block it and then create conversation, safe conversation, and safe relationship to help them out. So I would start there. That would be my thing. And we're going to dive in on, like, how to connect with your young person in the next slide. But anyone else? Any more questions? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Yeah, I think you just tell your, yeah, I mean, I would just throw it right back at them and be like, you're right, and they're not your parents either. I am, you know. And I know it's a little bit of a tough approach, but you could also be honest with them. You know the reason why we have this? And just sit down. It's like, because I don't want you to be addicted to porn online. I want you to have a loving relationship with your spouse and not view her as a piece of meat. You know, I don't want you to learn how to create drugs. I don't want you to be cyberbullied. I don't want you to be preyed upon by a predator. I mean, this happens all the time. I mean, there's so many kids that think they're meeting an online friend through Roblox, and they end up in a guy's house. Dateline exists for a reason, right? And that, especially if they're old enough, and if they're like old enough to have that conversation with you, why aren't you parenting me like these parents? Then you can be honest with them. I actually think it's better to have conversations younger than you think they're able to handle, because chances are, if they're, especially in their public school, they're already being exposed to it. The public school is exposing kids to things they never should hear at a young age, and the worst thing we could do is just pretend like it doesn't exist, and we have to start addressing it young. So if they're 14, well, they let me do this, they let me do that. Well, can I tell you why I won't? This is why. We love them. They're amazing. We're not judging them, but I love you too much to have this happen to you. You know, that's what I would say. Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, kids are gonna be naturally rebellious as teenagers, but when they turn like 20, 21, 22, they realize they can't cook, they have to get a job, and their parents are actually all right. They'll come back and be like, yeah, thank you for protecting me. I hated you in the moment, but I realized that was the most loving thing you ever did. And, you know, that's teenagers in general. I hate you. 25 years old, they have their first kid. You're the best dad and mom ever. I'm sorry for being so stupid. It's like, yep, I know. I was waiting for this. Took you 10 years, but I got it. I still got it. Anyways, hopefully that helps. That would be my response. Is just, hey, this is the real reason why I'm trying to protect you from stuff. I love. This is what we do with our kids all the time. Is we tell them we're trying to protect your mind. I said because if you see, they're like, well, we want to see spooky things and like we had a big demon conversation the other day, like 30, 45-minute long demon conversation. And Graham was just crying because he was afraid of seeing a demon, just so afraid. And so I said, okay, like for the next 45 minutes, all we'll talk about is demons. Ask whatever question you want. And by the end, he was like, okay, I feel so much better. Now he's like, Jesus is better than all the demons. You know, he's like, yeah, demons, Jesus is stronger, yeah, you know. And we tell them all the time, like, well, why can't we watch that movie? I'm like, oh, the reason why is we love you so much that we don't want those images in your head because we don't want them to scare you. You're not old enough to see scary images like that. Okay. And now when they see something like, Dad, I don't think I want a nightmare, so I don't want to watch that movie. I'm like, thanks, buddy. Because that's what ends up happening. Your kid sees a scary movie, and that's the only thing they see for 2 more weeks. And so I'm going to try to limit that as best as I can, you know, because they're super young. But, yeah. Any other questions before we move on? Is this okay? Doing all right? Okay, go. Yeah. Yes. 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 So good. Yes. 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 Yep. Yes. It's so good. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And the thing I love about what you said, you're like, be bored. That's so important. People have to learn to be bored. And you said, go do music. I want to tell you, you can't take away something without supplementing something else. So don't take away the internet and expect them to be okay if you're not like, how about you learn guitar? Or how about you go join this team? Like, go join karate. Like, give them, like, young people, they need to be active. They need to have fun. Their brain needs to create. And this whole social media thing that we have, it's used to shut down their brain, not stir their creativity. So that was really good. Okay, we're going to move to the next slide. All right, cool. We learning? We're having a good time? All right, moving on. Do I have the next one? Is there a next slide? Okay, cool. Give it up for our people in the back. They're killing it. Okay, so obviously the heart for all of this is as we're monitoring our kids and protecting our homes, that's not the only job that we're doing. Our job is to create a safe environment for our kids to feel free, to feel loved, to feel seen, to feel that they can connect. Because we're not just like, say, you know, behave, but no connection. Like, we're here to protect them and also give connection. I remember one time my son was raging, and I'm just like, fire meets fire, man. I'm like, you want to do that? Then unleash the full fury of, you know. And then I was like, I'm going to discipline him. I'm going to get I'm going to get the wooden spoon and spank him. You know, this is like spanking territory. And Brigitte stopped me. She's like, you cannot discipline where you haven't had connection. She's like, you haven't connected with him in a long time. You need to connect with him first, and then you can discipline him. I'm like, good God, woman. I married a prophet. Jesus. So I sat down and I just okay, I'm like, we're just going to connect. We wrestled, we played, and then I talked. You can't have that type of behavior. And so when it comes to parenting, it's the same way. We cannot discipline without having connection, right? We can't just say, go to your room, clean up. We also have to connect with our kids. Something happens when kids get older, right? And I deal with it all the time because I'm their youth pastor. your kids are like, so many times kids are like, the parents are like, my kid is terrible. I'm like, they're amazing at youth. I'm like, they're like our best youth student, and at home they're terrible. We're like, okay, we got to have a talk about honoring your parents. You can't have that duality. But raising youth is very difficult. Raising teenagers is very hard. When you have young children, you tell them to stop. They say okay. They protest, and you help them out, and they bend to your will, right? But something happens when they turn 11, 12, 13. All of a sudden, the no's don't work anymore, and they don't want to run up to you and give you hugs. And you might hear an "I love you" once a year. It's just and that's really hard for parents because we're so used to them, and still to this day, they're still. When your child's older, and even when your child gets married, you still see that little girl, that little boy in them. And what happens often, and I see it a lot because I deal with teenagers, is because we still see them so young, or parents still see them so young, we still parent them like they are that young. We found a really effective way at 5, 6, 7 years old, and it's worked really well, but all of a sudden they're not listening to it at 12, 13, 14. And they've evolved, but we haven't. And what we do is if we don't choose to evolve, what worked at 5, 6, 7 doesn't work at 13, 14, 15. And even though we were able to protect them and help them and don't touch the fire, don't touch the stove, all of a sudden we don't tell them not to touch something, they're like, I'm going to do it anyways, just to spite your mom and dad. And we come even harder because we're like, this worked when you were younger, but you're still young in my eyes. We're not able to see we have this kind of growing, mature. Well, they think they're mature. They're still really immature, but this maturing, rather, young person in our home. And that's often where most of the disconnect happens with young people is when they get older. And my child never wants to hang out with me, never wants to spend time with me anymore. And that's biological. You were their parent, you were their hero, and you were formative for their life, and now they're looking for other voices. There's a poll that says a young man, they have 7 influential interactions with older men that determine what they're going to be like as a young man. And so that's normal. Like your father is going to be your hero, but then an uncle steps in, a grandpa steps in, a teacher steps in, a coach steps in, a youth pastor steps in, and that helps formulate that young adult into that man he is today. And so, but I want to say this truth, and I really want you to understand this, and I mean this out of over a decade of dealing with teenagers. This is a true statement, and a lot of parents don't believe it, but this is a true statement. Your teenagers still want to have a relationship with you when they're teenagers. It's the truth. Your teenagers still want to have a relationship with you when they're teenagers. Now, they may never say it. They may be like, oh, you're so lame. Oh, you're so dumb. I don't want to hang out with you. But really, in their heart, they really would still love to spend time with you. It might just look different when they're older, but they still want to spend time with you. And oftentimes, we don't know how to connect with our kids anymore. And what happens is, because when your child gets older, emotions become way more real, right? Pain becomes way more real. It's like, okay, when I was young, I got physically hurt, but now when I'm 12, why am I emotionally hurt? Like, why does it hurt in my heart now? What's this depression? What's this anxiety that I feel? And so there are a lot of reasons why kids disconnect. Very common that I have with pastors is I don't know how to connect with my child all the time. I don't connect with my child, or my child infuriates me, and they're pastor of a church, and so I've done communications between the youth and the pastor. Okay, where did we drop the ball? Where did it happen? And oftentimes, parents aren't choosing to listen to their child. They're trying to force that connection when the child feels completely disconnected from the parent. And you have to fix the disconnection before you can actually bring the connection, especially when you have a young person. And so when it comes to young people, there are several ways they disconnect. One is they don't feel safe to have a relationship anymore. They don't feel safe to meet you on the level of love that you're trying to meet them at. That could be for a lot of reasons. That could be they feel hurt. They've been hurt by you. Maybe something that you said, the way that you've acted. I know this is hard because a lot of us parents, we want to feel justified. But really, when our kids get older, it's that, when we're young, and when our kids are young, we have to have like this overprotectiveness, right? Because all of like toddler years is making sure your child doesn't die. Like that's literally what it's like raising a 5-year-old. You're like, don't run out of the street, don't grab the snake. You're like, if I could just keep you alive, I am a good parent, right? But when they're 12, 13 years old, they are already living their life, right? They're good. But that overprotectiveness can actually end up hurting them than helping them like it was when they were young. So oftentimes they feel disconnected because they don't feel safe. They've been hurt. They don't feel like they're listened to. This is a big one. You're so used to telling them, like, don't grab that, don't do that, don't do that. Oh, stop that, right? And we all need to do that. Every parent needs to do that. And I love this kind of like feeling generation that we have. But I'm like, but if my kid's crying because he couldn't hold a rattlesnake, I'm not going to be like, I'm so sorry. How does it make you feel? I'm going to be like, get the rattlesnake away from your hand. Don't die, right? So they don't feel listened to. They're not having their needs met. It's a big one. And they feel that you're not interested in them. And so that's a communication breakdown because you're like, I'm super interested in my child. But they feel that you're not interested in them. So these are very common that kids have, and it's very normal. And the truth is, when you deal with these situations, chances are they want to connect with you again. Chances are they want to have a conversation with you again. They're like, yeah, okay, what does our relationship look like as youth or as teenagers? Because you still have a relationship, it just looks different. You might compete with the best friend, but when you're going through a hard time, your chances are your child's going to run to you or run to your partner more than they're going to run to a friend. And we want to make sure that they feel safe to do so. So how to deepen your relationship with your teenager. The next one. So this is kind of a first thing. So this would be like, where do I start? So let's say you have had no connection with your teenager. Your teenager's just been a jerk. You've been a jerk. You don't like it when they're around. They don't like it when you're around, right? And, parents just need more self-care. We just need lots of love because parents endure so much. But when it comes to having youth, we actually have to exercise something we didn't have to exercise when we had littles, and that's called humility. Is when we are older, we have to exercise humility with our young people. Even if we see them doing stupid things, we have to be like, you know what? I know what you're doing is wrong, but I've told you what you're doing wrong, and that doesn't work. But I want a relationship with you, so I have to take the humble route. And the Lord blesses our humility as parents. And so what I often say if there's no connection is start up an apology for them on how you've hurt them and give them an invitation to initiate dialogue where they can share how they've been hurt and you just listen. And so if you have no connection with your young person, they don't want connection with you at all, one thing you can start is sit them down and say, hey, I just want to apologize to you. Why? I feel like I've hurt you, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like I've hurt you really bad because I don't feel connected to you. And you may not know what it is, but I feel like it's there, and I want to tell you I'm sorry, and I apologize. And I want to tell you this. If you ever feel hurt by me, I want you to tell me right away. And if you don't even know what it is, right now, I want to say the dialogue's open. I just want you to come, and I'm just going to listen. I won't even say a word. I just want you to listen. And your child will be like, oh, that's weird. And then they'll leave, and then 2 hours later, they'll come in, Dad, and they'll cry. I've been wanting to tell you this for 2 years, but when you said you're really disappointed in something, I shut down, and I've been angry at you for 2 years. I remember, actually, it happened when I was a teenager. I got really bad grades, and my parents decided to discipline me by taking video games away. And that was the thing that threw me off the edge. It wasn't the video games, it was the issue. I had a lot of unworked unforgiveness, and I completely destroyed my room. I raged. I just grabbed my dressers. I threw it up against the wall. I raged hard. I destroyed everything. My parents just let it happen. And at the very end, my dad's like, okay, you got to clean up your room. You pooped your own lunchbox. Now you got to eat it. So clean your room. So I cleaned my room. And I remember I was disconnected from I know it's hilarious. My dad has some hilarious one-liners. He's like, you got to clean your room, man. So I'm cleaning my room. I'm sleeping in all this mess. And for 1 month, I stonewalled my parents. I just stonewalled them. I didn't talk to them. I didn't care. I never said anything about I was like, we had no relationship for like a full month. And I still had to do what they said, like, go to school, go to church, all that kind of stuff, eat your food. I just didn't care to talk to them for a whole month. And then I remember they took me to a revival meeting. And in this revival meeting, the guy called me out in front of everyone and said, you come up here. And I was like, no. He's like, but, it's peer pressure when you have like 100 people in the room and the guy's telling you to come up to the stage, so you have to do it at that point. I'm not going to be that guy. So I go up to the stage, and he prays for me, and I don't fall over. Nothing happens. I'm just like, whatever. Like, nothing's going to happen here. And then he just prays, shakarasida, doesn't do anything. He just stops. He goes, oh, I know what the problem is. I'm like, what? He's like, you've been hurt. And the truth is, you have to forgive. And right when he said that, I broke. And I wept. I wept profusely. I cried. He prayed for me. I fell on the ground just weeping. And I realized I had all this hate and rage and unforgiveness towards myself, towards my parents, towards people I knew that I never processed, I never got over. And then after that moment, I was completely delivered from all that rage. And so now I don't throw a fit when I get mad. I just get mad. And so, we don't realize how much hurt, as young people, they'll carry hurt for a very long time. That's why kids self-mutilate, is because they've been carrying hurt so long they don't feel, so they mutilate to feel. It's why kids kill themselves, because they don't feel anything anyway, so why even live, right? They're emotionally numb. So we need to initiate the conversation when it comes to that stuff with our kids. Have I hurt you? How are you feeling lately? Are you in pain at all? Did it hurt you when your friend didn't text you back? We want to create that invitation. So first thing, if your youth is disconnecting with you, start with an apology. Not, what have I done wrong? Help me. Let me connect with you, please. No, don't go anxious with it. You're proposing something. Hey, this is my proposal. My proposal is, I'm sorry. Please tell me how I've messed up. Please tell me how I've done wrong. And I want to make it right. I want to do better. Will you help me? Will you help me understand how I can be closer to you? And you'll be shocked what your child says. Next is create a safe space for them, but be consistent in listening and needs. So you can communicate, look, I want our relationship to be safe. If it hasn't been safe before in the past, I'm sorry. I don't want you going to these people. I'm your mother. I'm your father. I want to speak into your life. I'm sorry if I haven't earned that. I'm sorry if you feel like you can't trust me with that anymore. I want to work on that. Will you please help me? And then you're making the decision to be consistent in it. It means if you're like, yeah, actually, Dad, I hate it when you yell at me when I do something wrong. Okay, I'll stop yelling. And they do something wrong. Are you okay? You're showing them that you are being serious in connecting with them, and that's a big deal. So, as old dogs, we can still learn new tricks when it comes to parenting. So, make quality time for them both together, individually. This is huge. Oftentimes, we think as when our kids are teenagers, they don't want to spend time with us anymore. The truth is, they do. They just want to spend it a different way. Sometimes I would even say that it is more important to spend time with your kids individually, when they're older than it is when they're all together. And I would say if you have any kids and they're over the age of 11 or 12, I would encourage you to take them out on father-son dates, mother-son dates, father-daughter dates, mother-daughter dates, and find stuff that they like to do. Find stuff that they're passionate about. I remember my dad's like, hey, you want to come work for me this weekend? I was like, no. He's like, oh, okay. 2 weeks later, hey, you want to come work for me this weekend? No, I don't. Oh, okay. Third time my dad asked, I'm like, Dad, I got to be honest. He's like, yeah. I'm like, I really don't want to work to spend time with you. Are you just asking me to spend time with you? You just want to spend time with me and you want to do it working? He's like, yeah. I'm like, Dad, I don't want to work, but I do want to spend time with you. Can we do something else? And this is when I was 19. And he's like, sure, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. Can we just go to a coffee shop and talk? He's like, okay. So one day my dad's like, hey, I'm picking you up. I'm like, what are we going to do? He's like, we're going to go to a coffee shop. I'm like, to do what? He's like, talk. I'm like, seriously? He's like, yeah. So we just sat there at Starbucks. He was just sitting in front of me. I was sitting in front of him. I'm like, thanks, Dad. He's like, what? I'm like, this is great. I'm like, I feel like I can connect with you and talk with you right now. He's like, great. See, he grew up in a blue-collar family, and how you connected was you worked together. You did a house project together, you work together, and you work with your hands. So my dad's like, hey, come work on this project with me. And I'm like, man, I don't want to crawl underneath the house, Dad. That's not my idea of quality time. I don't want to insulate a home. That's not my idea of quality time. I don't want to be covered in fiberglass as we're talking about our hearts. Can we do something else? Am I getting paid for this work? My whole time, my dad's feeling rejected, and I'm like, what the heck? So it's not that I didn't want to spend time with my dad. I just didn't want to do that. So sometimes we're like, when you're like, hey, son, you want to go do this? And they're like, no, they're not. And you may feel like they're saying no to you. They're just saying no to that. They want to spend time with you. They just don't want to do that. They just don't want to do insulation. So next is be involved in what they're involved in. I was a part of this online forum. I'm part of a couple online forums just to see the cultural trends with young people. And someone said in a group chat, they said, hey, I'm a father. How can I best connect with my teenager? I really want to connect with them. And there were 10,000 comments on this thread. And all these teenagers sharing how to connect and how their parents have connected with them. And it was so funny because some of them were so simple, I loved it. And they're like, yeah, I'm kind of a nerd, and I love watching anime, and so some people here probably like watching anime. And they're like, and this kid's like, I love watching anime, and my dad came in and said, son, I want to spend more time with you. What should I do? And he goes, I don't know. And the dad said, can I watch anime with you? And the son said, sure. And so now their relationship is blossoming because the father is just sitting with them, eating popcorn, getting snacks, and they're just watching anime together, and his father's talking about, his father doesn't care about anime, but he cares about his son. And so he's getting to know his son through that passion. And so lots of times, like, the best way to connect with your kid is do something that they're passionate about. Because honestly, as a parent, like, when we see our kid doing something that they love, we may not love it, but we love that they love it. And you can bond with them over that. It's just like, I don't like skydiving, but I think I like that you like skydiving. It's just like, you want to talk about skydiving? I'd love to talk about skydiving. Okay, I guess we'll talk about it, Or like with you guys and spiders with your boys. So you got to love what they love. Or love them in what they love. Continue the habit of affirmation. Lots of times as adults, as kids, we're scolding our kids. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. I would actually implore you to be more affirming to your kids. Wow, man, you did a good job at that thing today. Really? Yeah, the game you played, I loved what you did. That was amazing. Or your homework looks incredible. I just got a letter from someone the other day, and it was a guy. It was the most beautiful penmanship I've ever seen. It was from a 22-year-old dude. He was like a skater punk. I'm like, this is the most beautiful handwriting I've ever seen in my life. So I was like, you have beautiful handwriting. He's like, thanks, man. Like, just start getting this attitude of just affirming your kids. Just affirm them all the time. I would actually venture your child's hear negativity more than they hear affirmation. So you have to affirm more than being negative. Like, you can say one critical thing to your kid, and that one word is worth 10 affirmations to them almost. So do 11 affirmations to them and then critique them. Next is cheer them on what they love and show up for it. If they have a basketball game, go to the basketball game. If they have a dance recital, go to the dance recital. If they are doing something active, go show up. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, it works. There's lots of movies in the 90s about it. Be there. They need to encounter Jesus in you before they believe what you say about him. The best way you could get your child to believe in Jesus is to model Jesus for your child. They will tell if Jesus is real based on how you treat them, based on how you love them. And no one loves a hypocrite. And that's why a lot of people don't like Christians, is because they see hypocrites. And your child is the best barometer of your hypocrisies in a home. Is they'll see you up on stage being holy, and they'll come home to a monster. And we can't do that. We have to love our kids, and we have to show the love of Jesus through our kids. And sometimes preaching to our kids doesn't work either. The best message we could give to our kids about Jesus is how we treat them, not what we say about Jesus. They'll catch it by you being who you are. You don't need to preach to your kids all the time. Well, Jesus says this. It's like, no, if you love them, you listen to them, I'm here for you, can I pray for you? Then Jesus truly spoke to them in that moment through you. All right. Create a culture where church and faith is important. This is important. I grew up in the town of Astoria, Oregon, and my parents drove 2 hours every Sunday to go to church. We rode in the car 2 hours to Portland and 2 hours back almost every Sunday to go to church because they believed that church was important. Look, church and faith is important. And when they see you model it, they will model it as well. Your kids need to see you as parents pray together. They need to see you reading your Bible. Do your devotional time in the living room as they're making a sandwich. Like, they need to see what faith actually looks like. They need to see you give money to the homeless person. They need to see you invite someone over for Christmas they've never met before. When they see the faith and they see that faith's prioritized, whether it's preached to them or not, that gives them faith. That changes things for them. That was my grandparents. My grandparents, they adopted everybody. Like, they legally adopted 2 kids. And anyone that they didn't know was always invited to Christmas. And so my parents automatically adopted that, and I saw faith in action. Even though we lived in Astoria and we didn't have a church community, I saw faith in action all my life because I saw my parents always activating their belief in Jesus. And my parents rarely preached to me. That light was going out anyways. My parents rarely preached to me. But I saw them live the word. all the time. I saw my parents live the word better than anyone else. So anyways, I think that's the last slide. Is that the last slide? Cool. Leave that up. You can take a picture of it. I'm way over time, but we'll do, anyone have any questions, thoughts, concerns? Cool. Sweet. Let's pray. Put your hands on your heart. Say, help. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, Jesus. All right. Let's close your eyes. It's going to get disco in here. I just want to say all of you here are amazing parents, and you're amazing parents for showing up. And you all have what it takes to raise your kids well. And I'm going to prophesy, Lord, we just speak that this would be a fruitful year of loving family dynamics and family culture when it comes to our teenagers. God, we pray our teenagers would love Jesus. They would love their family. They would want to go home and hang out with their parents and their siblings. And God, we pray for everyone here that's stressed out. Lord, we pray that you give them grace, and you have given them grace to be excellent parents for their children. No one else is a better fit for their kids than them. You chose them for this role. God, we help us. Lord, help us when it comes to being humble. Help us when it comes to repenting into a new style of parenting we're not used to. God, we pray that all of our kids would just be so connected to you, and we would feel so connected to them, and they would feel so connected to us. Lord, we love you. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.